The social perspective on men has transformed from the early 1960s to present day. We've seen the perception of the American male and the father in popular culture significantly degrade since the 1960s. During the 1980s and the 1990s, the American male image on TV shows went downhill. A male was often seen as a chauvinistic jerk or someone who was often failing in order to get a quick laugh. Think of Ed O'Neill as Al Bundy in Married with Children, or Tim Allen as Timothy Tim Taylor in Home Improvement. Work by Scherer in 2001 confirms this in a study of sitcoms from the 1950s to the 1990s. She notes that there was a rise in the power shift among male and female characters made apparent through the telling of jokes at the father's expense. This portrayal has strong psychological effects on the men, women, and children who watch these shows. Is it possible that a family court judge is unconsciously biased because of a TV show they watched? While no studies exist looking at this direct effect, we can look at similar populations that require high integrity as a parallel. Like judges, editors should maintain ethics by being unbiased. Research by Reuter and Zillwitzes explores how exposure to publications' advertising may influence the decisions that the editors make. The study found that the editors are more likely to recommend the funds of their advertisers. The power of exposure creates a bias hard for even those conscious to avoid. Like editors, judges have ethics to maintain. We can look at the research done on the media's influence on voters as a parallel to how judges view opposing parties in a family law case. Wernstein, Martin, and Worth, 2012, found that the media's effects range from triggering an emotional response to persuading a voter to change candidate preference during a campaign. Like the voters, the judge votes when he or she renders a decision. Another study by Hoffman, John, and Walmart in 2007 conclude that biased media influenced the participants. While this is not surprising, they note that the bias is hard to overcome even for well-known organizations which purport to advocate objectivity are themselves biased. If organizations which advocate objectivity are still biased, then it's going to be hard for an individual judge to put aside their bias. Given the parallels of these studies to our population in question, the family court judges, we can conclude that there is a likely probability that the judges were influenced by the media and their portrayal of the male and father figure in popular culture. In the 1970s, fathers' rights groups emerged as a response to perceived media bias within the family court system, according to Dinner in 2016. Scherer's work in 2001 found that the male portrayal of being the butt of the joke in sitcoms rose sharply in that same time. From 1950 through 1970s, she found that the father was the target of the joke around 30% of the time. That number rose to 48% of the time in 1980s and 60% of the time in the 1990s. Scherer notes that in 1980s and 1990s, women told more jokes targeting the father, suggesting a marked increase in the positions of power. That bias still exists in 2019. Currently, around 25 states are considering a change to their laws making shared parenting the starting point for fit, willing, and able parents. These changes to the laws are only considered after parents lobby their legislators because they have received unfair treatment. Men and women receiving equal and fair treatment within the family court system is an important and complex subject. The media bias against the men is only one part of the equation. It's important for judges to recognize their own bias and how that may affect their decision making.